So welcome everybody, tutors, alumni, current students, as well as prospective students. Welcome to today's e-open house with CDE's industrial design. So today we have quite a number of guest speakers to get to your questions and share a little bit more about what DID is about. And yeah, so before we begin, perhaps let's just go for a quick round of introductions from the alumni, tutors, and current students. So yeah, if we could just get the speakers to just maybe share who you are and maybe just a liner about what you do and things like that. So perhaps we could start with the alumni guests, George or Marcus.
I'll let Marcus go first.
All right, I was waiting for someone. All right, hi everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm Marcus. I graduated, I think, in 2016 from industrial design. I am currently at Meta or Facebook, as we previously called it, as a product designer, and I'm working on the enterprise product space. Yeah, so it's good to see everyone here.
Cool, I'll go next. I'm George. I graduated from DID in 2013. Right now I'm working at Google on payments products. And before I was looking at Workspace, and even before that I was looking at startups. Great to see everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Marcus and George. Maybe the tutors next. Dr. Yan?
Hi, I'm Invention. Currently I'm the co-director for KL NUS Skill Center, which is a joint establishment between NUS and KL University in Japan, which we do a lot of media type of design.
Hans?
Hi everyone, I'm Hans. I'm from Division of Industrial Design. I'm also currently a practicing designer as well. Good to see everyone.
Patrick?
Hi everyone, I'm Patrick. I'm one of the professor in the Division of Industrial Design. I'm a industrial designer by practice, and I kind of do a lot of different things. Yeah.
Wow, we'll get you to elaborate on the different things later on, Patrick.
Yeah, my dog is kind of barking at the lightning.
Don?
Okay, my name is Don. I'm a former student also in DID. So DID for me was, I think, one of the happiest accidents to happen, right? I didn't intend to come in, and then I found myself here. But now I'm teaching here. I run a design practice also called Stuck Design. And then, so I'm both like a teacher and also was a student and alumni and also an employer, right, of DID students. So maybe we could share some of those perspectives with you. Yeah.
How about Nadira?
Hi everyone, I'm Nadira. I'm the administrator overseeing the undergraduate portfolio. Happy to have all of you here today joining us for the session.
Thank you. And last but not least, Pras.
Hi, I'm Pras. I'm a current year 3 student. Currently doing my internship at Grab. I like to do both interaction design and product design. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, right? I mean, we have ex-Grab employee and then now we have also a Grab intern. So it could be some interesting dialogue later on.
Cool. And yeah, I think that is everyone here. And so I guess left with myself. So my name is Desiree. I'll be facilitating today's session. And I'm also a teaching assistant here at DID, also alumni. And I'm working as a designer and design researcher at Stuck as well. So yes, that is all the speakers they have today, a wide panel of people sharing with you today. And yeah, so we do have some questions streaming in already. So please keep them coming and we'll get to them as we go on through today's session. But I think maybe just to begin, to give a very, very brief overview of kind of the things that how our ID course is like, perhaps I could just give a little bit of time for Hans to share a bit about the different types of, variety of projects that we have here in DID.
Sure, thanks Desiree. Hi everyone. Welcome and Hope I can share some really fundamental perspective or overview of the program with you, so you can get a better idea. I think a lot of this information is also in the PDF that we made available for everyone. Yeah, including a lot of interesting videos about projects that students have done in the past, recent past, and also not so recent. And you can really it really gives you a good idea of something that you might do, if you join the course, and it's something that you're passionate about as well. And if you refer to the slides that there's already sharing here, you can see a wide variety of projects that we embark on in our division. And although our division is quite small, we've still got division going on to the department. We have about 50 over students in every cohort. Yeah, and in this cohort of students, particularly in the second year onwards, third year and in the fourth year, our students get to do 2 projects per semester. And every semester, we choose the 2 projects from a big basket of different project types, as you can see here on the screen. I will not describe each project type in detail, yeah, but they range anything from typical product or industrial design, designing electronics, things like a washing machine, air conditioner, to furniture design, to things that are quite intangible, like an app or user experience, yeah, to bigger things, like systems and things like that. So the projects can also be quite straightforward, meeting a direct need of a user. It can also be quite speculative, being quite discursive and trying to find experimentation or finding creative ways to do things that push the boundaries of what we may know in the usual way things work. So the variety is big. And I think in the PDF document, you can also see several projects from each category. So I do encourage you to look into those. And Desiree also might show you a few later on. Yeah, so if you have any question, please post them to us. I think there's another slide, is it, Desiree?
Yes, there's actually, if you want to go through that.
Yeah, so with that, essentially, what we really want to help students do and construct in their own unique design DNA or identity in industrial design. So although industrial design is quite, it might be a term that you're not familiar with, right? And in NUS, it's something that we work with as well. But I think it's really important, that you see that industrial design is more of an encompassing term. It encompasses different things like product design, interaction design, user experience design, system design, service design. So all of these things come into play in the experience, and depending on what project you do, what you lean towards, you can kind of like design your experience in industrial design, and to shape yourself as a unique designer, so that when you graduate, you have opportunities that lie ahead of you. A designer also at the same time wear many hats. We don't focus on just doing one thing. We focus on many things. So at the same time, although we like students to specialize, there's opportunity for students to do a more broad-based learning in the design curriculum as well. You might, if you're interested in design, if you're looking at other universities, not just in Singapore but overseas as well, you might realize that in most universities, design is separated into different domains: like interaction design, product design, furniture design, and each of these domains has their own department. But I think what is really unique here about industrial design at NUS is the fact that we amalgamate these different domains together. Yeah, we refuse to break into different kind of like categories, so that at one go you can learn all these things at the same time, and you learn different approaches to design. And we hopefully, we generate designers and designers who graduate from our program, have a wide range of skills, and they can solve really complicated and systemic problems for the world and for the better of mankind.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hans, for that very brief overview, right? Kind of all the many different types of things that we do here at industrial design, and how wide that this definition of industrial design here in NUS can really be. So I think to maybe just begin, I will just show you kind of maybe one video of one of the projects that we've done before in DID, and then after that we will get some questions answered, and also get some sharings from the alumni guests that we have here today. So yeah, so for this one, it's under one of the domains about innovation and invention in healthcare and medicine, and Maybe I'll share this one video. It's a project that was done quite a number of years ago, but you may or may not have seen this kind of going around your social media feeds here and there. So I will just play this one video for everyone to just take a look first. Okay, so that was a video on a project for a series of homeware cookware to help the blind or the visually handicapped to actually cook a little bit more independently. And it also actually did win the James Dyson Award for what it does. So yeah, that's just, you know, one I guess preview of one of the types of domains of projects that we have. And maybe at this point, could we get Dawn to just share any comments or something about this project?
Sure, Des. So I wanted to highlight that, you know, in industrial design, we use many different types of resources, right, to effect change. And in this case, you are seeing the use of something that's very physical, very analog, that almost doesn't have much tech. But at the same time, a lot of our projects swing all the way to the other end where there is technology and also like digital interfaces, which I'm pretty sure Macus and George have a lot to share about later on. But one of the things that I would say common to all of the projects that are done here is a certain sensitivity to human beings and trying to do things in a very efficient manner. Now, my favorite one in the video that you've seen earlier on is actually the last one where the water like a buoy that floats up, right? Why I like it very much is because it uses such an elegant and simple principle to help you inform when the cup is kind of full without your finger getting scalded, right? And it shows a very strong sensitivity to situations which for most of us, we don't notice that this is a problem, right? But once you start to go and look into a human being or a person with a certain particular need in a circumstance, you notice these things. And in DID, we are trying to find these moments to improve lives. And at the same time, we're trying to do it with ways that are the most sensible and surprising.
Thanks for that, Don. And now that, we've given you a little sampling of what one of the projects that we do here in DID is like, perhaps now we could actually spend some time to have the alumni share a little bit about, what you have been doing so far, what you're currently doing, where you're working, and I guess a little bit about that journey that you've taken in your career since your graduation from DID. So perhaps could we start with Marcus?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'll share a little bit more about my journey so far. So after graduating from NUS, I started at Grab back in 2016. Back then, I'll share a little bit more about the projects later if it comes up in a question, but I didn't do too much of UX design in school. I think there were many studios that allowed for it, but to be honest, I was not very interested in UX, UI design. I didn't take anything about it. I didn't pick up any tools, but it just happened that the opportunity opened up and I found myself at Grab. And so it was interesting, the kind of skills that we picked up at NUS, kind of transferring these things into a role that I was not very familiar in the medium of like designing for mobile interfaces, for example. I spent about 2.5 years there working on enterprise tools. So for example, building up the internal systems that help marketing teams to target promotions back then when Grab was still competing with Uber. That was a pretty interesting challenge. Coming out of school, no idea, just getting plopped into this and starting to design these tools was a pretty interesting, unique challenge. I then moved on to the finance payments team in Grab when we formed that. And that was pretty fun, just being able to get the opportunity to work on so many different types of projects, from rewards, subscriptions, payments. Grab back then was like a feature factory. So we were just trying to churn these things out. And it was really great exposure to learning about these things. The next place I moved to I was looking for a place that I could get a bit of a deeper understanding on how the business was really paired up with design. And I wanted to really see the impact of my work. So to be honest, back then, Grab, just the nature of where the company was at, I couldn't really see the impact of my work from a quantitative point of view. My boss might tell me, good job, I might see, some good reviews online, but I could not see from a design angle how the features I was working on, what kind of quantitative impact. And when I say quantitative, were people actually engaging with the things that I was building? I wanted to get a deeper understanding for that and how I could use that to inform my designs. And so I joined Alipay and Financial. The funny thing is I don't speak Mandarin, so that was a challenge in itself. I spent about a year, 2 months there, but it was really interesting to see how the Chinese approach design and how they use numbers, right? It was very, very quantitative driven. So very different from a Western approach of like, let's do user interviews, let the user tell us what this is about. They just really brute force with the numbers to say, all right, we're going to launch this, we're going to do quick iterations, we're going to see what the data is telling us, and we're going to refine from there. So that was really interesting to kind of almost see as a learning module to kind of pick that up. And right now I'm at Meta. I think I wanted to take a step back when I was at Alipay to really focus on something that was around problem solving. At Alipay, I felt like even though I understood what the business was trying to get at, I felt like they were trying to really force products or features that I didn't really find it was bringing value to users. So to give some context, we were focusing on payment success within the e-commerce in Southeast Asia. And they were trying to encourage users to add their credit cards and their bank accounts because that has the highest payment success rates. Whereas users in Indonesia, they prefer using cash. Thailand, they prefer using cash. So I didn't feel like I really connected with the business direction there. And so at Meta, I'm currently working on enterprise products where I feel it's not the flashiest thing at times, to be honest. It's not always consumer facing, but I do feel some of the problems that we're trying to tackle are quite challenging. It's very, like, I'll give an example. When COVID hit, like one of the tools that we built out last year was contact tracing tool for our internal employees. If someone had COVID or tested positive, how could we inform other employees that were high risk? And so that was pretty interesting, just to kind of translate something that was within Google Excel sheet, for example, into a tool that was a little bit more efficient and could kind of reduce the risk. So that's currently the space I'm in. And that's it for me. Can answer any other questions in the subsequent. Yeah, but I think I head over to George.
Should I go, Desiree, or
Yes,
someone else?
please go ahead.
Yeah. Where do I begin? I used to. So when I first graduated from DID, I worked in Singapore for about 3 years. It was back then I wasn't so sure what it was I wanted to do, so I mostly freelanced. And it was a very good experience. I got to work on a wide variety of projects. So, for example, I spent about a year working on in-store campaigns for SK2. Doing like spring. What's up to spring? Summer, fall, winter, like campaigns for the cosmetic brand. So I spent about a year doing that. I spent some time working on sort of like tourist experiences for a local agency called Chemistry, and so on. And I think at one point I decided I wanted to do work that was closer to what I kind of was good at when I was still in school. So I moved to San Francisco, and I started a new job as an industrial designer at a consultancy that was known to make a lot of consumer electronic products. So I spent about 2.5 years just working on consumer electronics, Bluetooth speakers, laptops, phones, and stuff like that. And the thing about consumer electronics is a lot of these products, they always have like an app or a service side of the offering, right? So like if you think about a Bluetooth speaker, the hardware side is just the sound quality and stuff like that. But a lot of them have man-machine interfaces. A lot of them have companion apps. So while we were doing the work for that, I got exposed to interaction design, to UX design, and that's when I sort of naturally shifted to doing more of that, right? So it's a small team, and everyone had different roles, and part of it was you do what you're good at. The other thing is you do what you want to do. So for me, it's just I'm not quite sure what the reason is, but I gravitated towards that, and then I did that for a while. So I worked on the interfaces for some of our consumer electronics and stuff like that, or coffee machines and so on. And that was kind of it. So that was like the turning point. And from then on, I moved into tech, and I did work at a startup that worked on web-based video conferencing. Did that for a while and was attracted to this startup that did self-driving cars. Did that for a while, and then eventually the opportunity came to join Google. And if you think about it, I've had a lot of experience working at smaller organizations. So a lot of agencies, a lot of maybe smaller startups and so on. And I wanted to see what it was like to operate at that scale that Google offered. And then I took that opportunity, and for about a year I worked on Google Workspace, and that was like a complete different change, right? So if you think about working on apps or services that maybe a few 100,000 people use, to working on like Gmail, right? So one of the projects I had worked on was improving the search experience in Gmail. So if you hate it, let me know. I did something wrong then. But Gmail is used by millions of users every day. So the pace, the scale, the kind of things that you have to think about when you want to change something is completely different, right? And then now I've switched to another team, and I'm working on payments products. We're looking at launching in new countries, and then the consideration now is all different, right? So previously at Workspace, I was working on a product that many people use. Now I'm working on a product that, the country that we're launching, no one's using that product, right? So the considerations again are all different. And then let me see how much I can say. 1 second. So if you launch it in a country that you're not familiar with, then you have to do a lot of research to understand how people in that country use, you know, the apps and services that you're trying to launch and so on. So it's just, you know, a lot of different opportunities to try different things that keeps, you know, me like moving on to the next thing, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure how to end what I'm talking about, so I'm just gonna say I'm done and I'm gonna pass on to the next speaker.
Thanks, George and Marcus. So actually, as a follow-up question to George, with, you know, your kind of having so many different types of experiences, both in physical, digital products, also locally and overseas. Yeah, I mean, would you be able to share a bit about how having a foundation to your design career built in DID, how that may have affected or influenced your journey throughout your different parts of your career so far?
Yeah, I can do that. So that table, the grid that you guys showed earlier in the presentation, that showed the variety of projects that is available at DID. I think that's like something that's very unique to the program at NUS. Like Han said, if you maybe try another program somewhere else where the offering is more specialized, you might not get as varied a set of, you know, things that you can choose from to work on. Not saying that one is better than the other, right? So part of, you know, the looking for like a program that you want is also where you're at, knowing what you want to do, right? So if you're very sure like subject X is the thing that you want to do, maybe it'll be helpful to do something like go for a program that's, you know, pushes you very deep down the rabbit hole for subject X, maybe. But if you don't know if that's really what you want to do, then I encourage you to like take a program that allows you to explore. And I feel like that's the real value of the program at DID. And having, you know, so I did many different things when I was at the program there. I did a lot of stuff that was physical, but so I worked on a lot of traditional industrial design kind of work. But the thing that surprised a lot of, I think, the tutors that on this call was my thesis was a UX design project. No one saw that coming, I think, but that's what happened. And then so you end up with a lot of different skills. And the thing that ties everything together is really critical thinking, like design methods, how to refine, how to iterate, sensibilities around form, around what's pleasant to the eye, to the user's experience, and so on. And those are things that you can take and then move on to, let's say you want to be specialized in visual design, then you can then take those sort of like overarching basic skills and then become specialized in that area. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, George. So maybe along the same lines, Marcus, you mentioned that back in school, you didn't necessarily take many UI UX projects, and yet you have come into kind of the digital product space, right, in your career. So if you could name, I don't know, just one takeaway from NUS DID that kind of helped you in your career journey so far, even though they may not necessarily be so-called hard skills in UI UX, what would that be?
I could give you 3 that come to mind. Plus 2. I think as George was kind of describing, I guess you were asking a question, the 3 things that came to mind in terms of soft skills that I brought over that I kind of really learned in NUS. I'll try to name the 3 and I'll try to give practical examples also. So I think the first one was the ability to distill ambiguous scope and really to frame it in a clear way, that in a clear approach. I think there were projects that I took up in NUS that, the scope when you come to the studio the first day can be really ambiguous. Like the prof would just say, we want to improve the waiting experience at a hospital, or we want to improve, the ATM experience. And you're just sitting there thinking, all right, what do I do next, right? I have, 6 months or 3 months to work on this. How do I distill it down? And I think these kind of opportunities really helped me as I transition into the UX space in these different companies. Because when you're at these different companies, it's not always handed on a silver platter, right? At Grab, it can be like, we want to introduce a subscription program. All right, great. How do you distill that down? What features do we want to build out? How do we want to prioritize this? How do we want to, what problem are we solving, right? So I think that kind of sensitivity really helped me. The second thing that comes to mind is really having a holistic approach. And when I say holistic, I think there are two aspects of this. The first is the modules that I took up in NUS, like there was a studio we did with Samsung, redesigning sustainable refrigeration, for example. When I say holistic approach, the studios really helped me to think not only about the design, but what are the other aspects that I need to account for when I'm designing, right? So thinking about what the stakeholder needs. So in this case, what was Samsung trying to do? What was cost effective? Or, thinking about the technical constraints, for example, I could come up with a really nice idea for this fridge, but, would it be practical or not? And so when I say holistic, it has really helped me when working in these companies, because you can't just come in and say, all right, I'm going to provide the best design, right? I think what has helped me and what I enjoy about my work is this sort of like balance you have to do, really understanding not only just the user needs as a designer, but understanding, what makes the business money? What do they care about, right? Understanding from an engineering standpoint, what can be doable in this time frame, and trying to find a balanced solution. The last thing that comes to mind is really having succinct communication and storytelling. I remember, a lot of long nights, thinking about how you've been working on this project for 3 months or 6 months at school, and we have about 3 minutes to present it, 3 minutes to sum up all this work. And so, it's very stressful, I'm not going to lie, but I like that challenge. I like learning from other students also. How do we tell a story in 3 minutes, right? Not showing a video, but presenting it very clearly. And so I think that has really, really helped me in my career, being able to express ideas, to get stakeholder buy-in. That's something that you don't always see it with colleagues around, and it's something that I am very thankful for. At least one of these things that I picked up from NUS. So those are my 3 things that come to mind.
Thank you. Thanks, Marcus, for sharing also your 2 bonus ones, even though I had asked only for 1, because there's many things right to learn from DID. Okay, but anyway, at this point, I think let me just share my screen again, and we can share actually maybe another student project video that we had done recently. And this kind of comes under the project domain about user experience design, right? In retail, hospitality, and other types of services. And I will show you this video right here. And the project is called Grid City.
Hello, I'm Yuan Jie, and this is Grid City, a queue system that utilizes projection mapping to instill social distancing within groups and also uses data visualization to influence consumer decision making. I was intrigued by current visual indicators for social distancing in queues, where many establishments use creative techniques to tackle social distancing. And that leads to situations where customers will be left hanging in separate crowds. So, how can we reimagine visual cues for a recovering society in the COVID-19 pandemic as people get more and more used to being in groups of 5? Grid City uses computer vision to capture data from tools such as a Kinect, while processing those data into tangible visualizations projected on the floor in the queue and displayed online. The grid's projection interaction was designed with affordance in mind. To invite people to a grid, a small indicator lights up to an available space. When a member Hello, I'm Yuan Jie, and this is Grid City. With affordance in mind, to invite people to a grid.
Sorry, I don't know why it keeps restarting.
Still social distancing within groups. When a member of the group enters a grid, a small circle lights up below their feet, indicating their position and their social distance radius. When more than one person is present in a grid, they are represented as a group in a larger circle, and a boundary forms around them. A main aspect of this projection interaction is the recognition of groups as a unit and to provide adequate distance between each group. And so groups are spaced out between each other with different colors. When each of these groups comes too close in contact, an indicator will show that affects both the groups that are in contact. This interaction taps on the sense of self-consciousness in people to keep the group safely distant. While all of these are happening, captured data is represented on the website, converted into comprehensible visuals. With that, consumers are able to have a look to decide whether they will want to visit a place or whether a place is too crowded for them or not. Beyond that, they are also able to predict crowds with past data that was collected. By allowing more information to be visible, we enable better decision making for consumers and also keep crowded areas to a minimum. Here's a user journey map of Grid City and its accompanying website. Powered by projection lights, Grid City can be used in places where physical visual indicators might be hard to see, such as a bar or a club in Clarke Quay, or even places where group queues are common, such as in a shopping mall. And with that, Grid City enables consumers to get informed about crowded queues and be assured that their group of 5 won't be too close to another. Thank you.
Okay, so that is one of the student projects that we have. Perhaps at this point, could we get maybe Dr. Yen to share a little bit about the project or your thoughts or anything you might want to raise about that project?
Okay, so in the industrial design, right, often we are not only trying to train students to do a product, but we try to train them to see how to they do observation, try to understand the social trend. So for example, this project is one of a clear example, which a student really understand the insight and then try to understand how can we find the other way to help people instead of a very typical way. Now, if you talk about the queuing, all these other things, right? People is not happy, but they need to follow it. But how can we find another way, allow the people to have much more comfortable, but also much more exciting type of experience? Yeah, so I think for the student, right, we are not only trying to challenge them, but we also try to see how can they provide a vision or provide a dream for the people. In that case, right, we are not only talk about a problem solver, but we also try to see how can we become a dream maker for the people.
Just chime in there on Dr. Yen's dream maker, right? Then that's the thing that I want to highlight. This is a project from a student who worked on it when he was a second year student, right? And then done over a course of like 11 to 12 weeks. And so if you are sharp, in the audience, if you're sharp, you'll realize that actually this doesn't really work in many places, where it's too bright or to install projection systems all over. Now, in DID, sometimes the dream is to pursue, say, a possibility for human beings first, and then also to see what kinds of information nudges causes people to shift their behaviors in certain ways. So once something is promising, you could then take on and develop it and implement it in a way that is more doable in different settings. So this performs almost like a role of a vision project than something that's immediately implementable.
Thanks for that, Dr. Yen and Dawn. So perhaps right now we could pause to answer some of the questions that have come in from the students. Okay, so I will just be sharing some of the questions. Tutors, current students and alumni, please feel free at any point to chip in what you think, okay? So the first question we have is, how does NUS DID differ from NTU ADM's design art pathway? Do we know? Because since they both cover visual communication and product design. Tutors, do we know anything? I mean, we of course we can't speak for NTU side lah, but yeah, tutors, any thoughts on this?
And nominate Hans.
Nominating me to answer a really difficult question. I think that's really the main point. I think for us, because these are two universities in Singapore, I think both of them are different. I think it's for you to find out, what is the key differences and which one suits, your appetite. For us, we can only say, what we are and how good the course is at NUS. Right? I think we leave you to find out how the course is like at NTU. I think one good way to do it is really just not just speak to us, but speak to the students who are currently enrolled in the course to find out the nuance of the course and how it is run in both universities, right? I think I could say that the key difference that we mentioned just now is the fact that in NUS industrial design, we focus on a very holistic education in the curriculum that we have designed in terms of attacking design in different angles and different domains and expertise. Yeah, I think that is quite unique to us, not just in Singapore, but also in the region. There are not many schools doing this, as well as we are doing it at NUS right now. So that's certainly something that you can look forward to right here.
Okay, thanks for that answer, Hans. Moving on to the next question we have is, what are the chances of getting jobs overseas after graduation? So I don't know whether tutors, if you have worked overseas, or George, would you have anything to say about this getting jobs overseas after graduation?
Don, you also work overseas, right? You want to take a step?
You're the guest here.
Why don't you go and then I'll go after you?
Sure. I think I have to capture where to begin right now. Seldom I get arrowed by the guest. So anyway, I've worked overseas for some years, not as long as I think George, and in various places like in Eindhoven, and then after that also in San Francisco. So I think more and more in Singapore now, even if you don't go overseas, a lot of that knowledge and culture is actually starting to be imported here. Especially with the big firms like Google, where George is in. Now you have those opportunities to get jobs here directly, and you have quite a good perspective, a global perspective. In the past, when I was a student, I think we probably had to travel to capture that somewhat. Okay, so my past has largely been in physical product design, whereas in Macus and George's case, they have transited very much to UI and UX. Now, maybe the other little thing I could suggest or chip in on this point is that both from a student and alumni and teaching point of view, I think DID is able to offer such a large variety of things that changes with the times. Like when product was important to the markets, we could do products. When UX is more important to the markets, our graduates can shift that way. It's just because we simply focus on helping you innovate for human beings, right? And that is timeless. Okay, so therefore the course will transfer to you some kind of skills that are really transferable across the way times change and across different sectors, right? And therefore also you can travel with your job, right? Relating back to going to a different culture, a different market. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Maybe the first question to ask yourself is like, why do you want to work abroad and how do you want to work abroad, right? That's maybe one thing to do. And then once you've decided where is exactly you want to go, then the question is to find out how to get there, right? So I think there's no one answer to this question, because where you want to go is going to directly affect how hard it is to get there, right? So there are things, it's not as simple as just applying and getting a job. There are things like visa. Every country wants to protect their own demographic and have jobs for their own people and so on. So in Singapore too, right? So wherever you're going, it's going to vary, right? But if you want to, if we reframe the question a little bit into like how many of DID's alumni are working abroad, then I'd say there's quite a few, right? So if you look at the last session that we had earlier in the morning, we have Celine who's working out of Silicon Valley. Then we have 2 weeks ago, I just spoke to one of our juniors, Magdalene, who's now in Stockholm, working for Klarna, which is like a buy now pay later startup. We can still call them startup; they're quite big. And then we have folks who are in other countries in Asia. Like my classmate Valerie worked in Hong Kong for a long time. So I'd say like it's not impossible. It's not easy. It's not necessarily easy. So it's you choose what you want to do, make sure it's what you want, figure out how to get there, and then you can apply the things that you learn in NUS to find out how to get there. It's also a problem for you to solve, right? Yeah.
I can add on one point also. It's not I don't work for the government. I don't so it's not a pitch by then. But so I think in school it was my goal, my number one goal, to go work overseas in the States and Europe. I did an exchange in Paris. I loved it. I wanted to go back. But the funny thing is, now there are options to go overseas, to London, to the US, to Tokyo, but like I actually do want to stay in Singapore. Like I said, it's not a government pitch, so I think I'll give my explanation why on this. I think I speak on the UX part of it. The business is really booming in Singapore right now. Like everyone is trying, like there are not that many designers, and there are all these companies that are trying to hire. Singapore has invested quite a bit. And whenever you join one of these companies, it's actually quite interesting, because back to George's question, right? It's like, why do you want to go overseas, right? I mean, if you want to enjoy the culture there, that by all means. But I think from a learning standpoint, you get such international presence in Singapore that you can really learn a lot from all these different, like, people from different places. And I really benefited from that diversity there. So like I said, it's not a pitch to stay in Singapore, but just sharing another angle there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts on working overseas. So we'll cover 2 more questions before we share another project video. And the first one is actually from students who's asking, saying that I'm interested in UI UX design. And yeah, may I know how often we will be touching on that in school? Tutors, do you have a quick answer to that?
I think maybe Patrick and Dr. Ying can answer quite a bit of that. I think their students do quite some of those work.
I think the interesting question there is like, how often do we touch UI UX? Unless the platform itself is kind of specific to that. But often you find that even as we frame our projects, especially the thesis, right? And we try to put them in bags of like product innovation or user experience. But often they are never kind of a singular kind of entity. It always crosses over to different discipline. So even if you are doing a simple product, it's also related to kind of a user experience. At certain point, the digital component will come in. And I think really the differentiating is the nuances of that understanding the experience and those kind of the observation, the nuance of the observation. There are the key value of how the products are kind of formulated, or it could be a product, it could be an interface, it could be an app. But understanding that nuance in kind of like what is connecting to the human, right, is probably the more important for us than to say that it's a UI, UX or a product design.
Maybe just further add, I think like just now when Marcus mentioned about his project for waiting. So basically it's like just now how Patrick mentioned, if you try to do a waiting experience, you can try to change into a digital type experience. You can try to change into a very analog type experience. So it really depends on the student, how do you want to craft your career, as well as how do you want to really figure out what sort of design you want to do. And in a way, for the whole design platform system, we try to do is much more student-centered type of idea. We allow the student to choose different type of platform by themselves. They need to build a platform rather than we assign them need to do this. So in that case, right, I think I can see some of the students maybe in the earlier year, if they want to do much more user UI UX type project, they may be already engaged in that type of project. But some of the students may not know what they want. They may try to browse around, try to see maybe product design is much more interesting, or critical design, or whatever things, they are much more fun. And then in the presentation, because we try to share everything with each other. So I do have a student come and talk to me, say, at first beginning, they think about what they want to do. But after they see other people's project, they start to see, wow, that one is very interesting. That's what they want to do. So I think that's a part now us really try to let the student really try to learn and then try to find out their own career future, rather than we try to paint out a future for them, and then but that is not really what we try to do. Is the student, they can try to do by themselves.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I think we will address more of the questions later on. And now I will share my screen again to share yet another project video. So this comes under the domain of AR, VR, kind of tangible technology and the Internet of Things. And I thought to show this one project who happens to be Pras's project. So perhaps Pras, you can talk a little bit more about that after the video and share maybe some of your learnings from that project.
Yeah, it's good, man, to finally hear from a student. There's too much. Too much of us talking.
Okay, so I'll play the video now, okay?
Hi everyone, I'm Karina.
And I'm Pras.
And I'm Yuanjie. Together, we've worked on auto controls.
Okay, yeah, Pras, could you share a little bit more about that project and kind of what maybe one key thing that you had learned from doing that project?
Right. So that was kind of that's actually my first project, like together with my first platform project technically. It was under a prof named Clement. It was an interaction design project trying to use this QR code-like markers called AR markers to be detected by computer vision, and that would be translated into some kind of a digital action. So we wanted to make this DIY board that people could customize and make their own keyboards or let's say gaming devices, all using this AR marker system. This project involved a bit of like UI UX with those creating those app softwares. And in fact, we did build it. So we had to learn JavaScript and actually launch this app, as well as publish this project on the Instructables so that other designers or like DIY enthusiasts could build this project on their own. And I think it was quite of a, I would say stressful but interesting project because I think it really pushed us to our limits, given that it was only our first platform project. But I think we were guided quite well by our year 4 group mate. So this was with 1 year 2 student and 1 year 4 student. And I think she was kind of guided and mentored us throughout the entire 13 weeks process. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Pras. Could you elaborate a little bit more about how that dynamic may be like, kind of working together with your seniors, your juniors on the same project?
Right. I think that's something that other courses don't really have. Like I think it's quite unique to DID. It's that we have these vertical studios in which year 4s, year 3s, and year 2s get to work together on projects. Sometimes it's tutors allocate these groups together, or sometimes we try to find the groups ourselves. And I think that is where most of the learning happens because year 4s and year 3s kind of teach the year 2s of those hard skills that we haven't learned before in year 1. As well as year 2s kind of bring a bit more of like ideation energy to the year 4s together also. Yeah, so I think that I was quite thankful that my group dynamics was really great. And I think I really enjoyed working with my group mates. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. So actually, I guess latching on to this project, to perhaps answer one of the questions from the students, Maybe Pras, you might want to answer it, or tutors also please feel free to chip in. The question is, would you say that this course is very software heavy? And would a JC art student with little design and physics experience be able to qualify and be able to survive in DID? Yeah, what would you have to say to that?
Obviously, I'm actually also a JC student. I didn't really take physics. I didn't know the software. So when I came into year one, I had no idea like how to use any of the Adobe Photoshop or like Illustrator kind of things. I still remember one of my year one friend, Joel, was like teaching me how to use a pen tool on Photoshop. Like that was for one of our clay projects, I think. So I think I came to the idea without knowing any of like the software skills, but I think that can be picked up if you do like practice on the way. But I think more important than the softwares would be trying to work on like the design thinking process, right? I think that's more important. Yeah, I'll let tutors talk more about that. Sure. Yeah.
I can chime in a little bit on this. I think in DID you have that latitude to work in the areas that are your strength. We always encourage the students to be a bit more multi-curious and try to do something that's a bit outside of yourself. So then you can be a bit of like a bridge to find interesting new innovation spaces in between. But that said, you can also achieve that by collaborating instead of forcing yourself to be a coder if you don't want to. So later on, I will ask Desiree to show us things that are really on the other side, where it's maybe closer to art and experiments with materials that maybe Hans can talk a lot about. Then you might find that some of the students who are here who are very tech-centric will start asking, oh, do I need to be an artist? You will get the opposite concern. So we have that whole bandwidth over here that allows you to be kind of who you are, right? One thing I want to point out that you might find consistent throughout the projects is how smartly efficient they are, right? It's one of the things that I think we always try to do, whether it is a tech project or more materials experiment type of project. And you will see that in Pras example early on with the Aruko controls, precisely what's happening is a single graphic marker pasted on a paper, even wooden thing that you just pick up from home, right, can become a really interesting digital controller, right, for maybe $1, right, and just simply using computer vision. The alternative of doing this is to say, let's build a lot of sensors inside this very complicated contraption, right? And so in design, we are always trying to find these kind of surprises and possibilities with very little resources. And that will be the same when you look at the more artsy experiments too.
Yeah, actually, just to chime in on that as well, because like in year two, we did that a bit more techie kind of project, but in year two, I wanted to explore a bit more materials. And that was, again, with the same prof, Clement, where I, together with some of my group mates, we explored both the materials of silicone and magnets together. So there's a complete on the other spectrum kind of thing. And I think I also really enjoyed doing those kinds of material exploration on how we could infuse those silicone magnets to give a more haptic experience when people actually interact with it. Yeah. So I think, like what Don said, we do have the bandwidth of both sides of the spectrum. Yeah.
Perhaps on a related note, another question from another student was, what does the school look out for when we shortlist students for interviews? Is it really purely only looking at the grades and the grade profiles? Maybe Hans, could you take it in terms of, like what is one thing that you would look out for when you shortlist students for DID?
First of all, I'm not the one that shortlists the students. So we have an interview and all the lecturers come together to form teams to interview students. So if you're interested in the course, you might already know that industrial design is admission by interview course, meaning first of all, you need to meet the cutoff grade. And then if you meet the cutoff grade, then you will be invited for the interview. Right now, the interview in the past 2 years is done as an online interview, so you need to prepare a video with some materials that we ask for, answer some questions, and work on the small design exercise that we give you to submit. And then your admission application will be assessed also based on the results of this interview. One thing to say is, in this interview, we are really looking for people who not necessarily have a design aptitude like what Pras and the others has mentioned. We know that a lot of students come in for JC, and Singapore, unlike some of the European countries, our students sometimes have a background in art, but many times they don't. We don't have a design subject in the college or or in the college level, polytechnic, yes. Yeah, so most of the students come with a blank slate, and we're really looking for for the passion, the creativity and the drive, more importantly, to work in these areas. Like Pras mentioned just now, a lot of things that we don't teach, a lot of things that you need to know, we don't teach. So we don't focus on hard skills. Hard skills are skills that you need to pick up on your own. Yeah, and you'll be forced to go into this mode of already self-learning. Yeah, we are really more interested in teaching you about creativity, critical thinking, working with processes, and more important soft skills and thinking skills like that as such. So in this, last but not least, to end things off, is we also have the discretionary admission, meaning if your grade does not meet the official cutoff point, we do have the discretionary admission where and the percentage of students coming in through discretionary is quite huge, because we do recognize that sometimes students might not do well academically, right? So we do want to have a percentage of students, that come in because they really want to do industrial design, and they have something to show for it, and for us to consider, on top of just the academic grades.
Thanks, Hans. So I guess on a related question coming in also, is there any advice for international applicants who are applying for DID? And I don't know, are there any common problems faced during the course duration?
We consider overseas application quite similarly, in terms of the intake procedures and also the standards, with Singaporean students. So it goes, and also the admission system likewise. I think the only difficulty we had this year because of the pandemic situation is some of our students, because they got the news quite late, and because of country restriction, depending on where you're from, it was very difficult for them to join us at the start of the semester. But it seems that things are easing up already in many countries. So depending on where you're from, it might not pose so much of an issue, but it might still be a challenge. So deal with these cases on a case-by-case basis. Some of the students who could not make it in time, they came in like in the third or the fourth or fifth week of the semester. And we had we catered online classes for them until they were able to join us physically.
Okay, and maybe just one last question before we move on to another project. Pat, Nadira, you could help with this. There's a question asking about what are the number of students that come in through the aptitude-based admissions. Do we have the numbers for that?
Okay, usually every academic year we will receive around 250 applicants. Subsequently, when we shortlist, we will shortlist around like 150 to 180 applicants. And then subsequently, upon the review of the admission exercise, we will usually offer around our intake, which is between 50 to 55 students per academic year.
Okay, thanks, Nadira. Okay, so now I will share my screen again. Find it. Okay, so I guess swinging on to the other end of the spectrum, right, where we're showing a little bit more techie kind of projects. Right now, we will show you a couple of videos that are a little bit more experimental with the materials, and I don't know, maybe some would say a little bit more artsy. But so yeah, enjoy the next two videos. another one. Okay, yeah. So those are two projects that are semi under, experimentation and exploration of materials. And I believe they are both thesis projects who the students were supervised by Hans. Hans, do you have any thoughts to chip in for this?
Good job. Maybe I say something else. I think you might be quite if you're not familiar with course, you might be quite surprised, at the variety of projects that the students do. I think we are swung, into two specific directions just now. There are more, and you can really find out if you go to our website or to look at the PDF more closely. So I think one question you might be asking is, what if I'm not prepared for this, right? What if I can't draw, I can't program? What we do in ID is that in the first year in the design fundamentals, which was reformed about 2 to 3 years ago, right? In the first year, you will not get to do any of the platform projects, but you get to do something called the design fundamentals. Essentially, the design fundamentals equips you with the skills and the processes and the thinking and the fluency required to do the much bigger projects when you go into year two, right? So in the year one, under fundamentals, we have six different typologies of small problem. Within 6 weeks, you get to immerse yourself deeply into them and to practice and to get fluent. They can be things like form finding, or physical form finding relates to very much to product design, shaping, and finding emotions for shapes. Things like programming and electronics. You work on simple projects that deals with Arduino and things like that. You work on things like graphic literacy. So you learn about the basics of typography, and the visual hierarchy. You also get to work with material exploration, which is very relevant to what you saw just now. How do you work quickly and iteratively and exploratory with materials? You also work with a digital prototyping. So that points very largely to the UI UX type of project, where how do you quickly design user mapping and journey mapping, and prototyping digitally, so that you can work with your ideas really fast when you're designing an app and things like that. So we do have these very short kind of programs in the fundamentals to get you fluent in the things that you need to do. Of course, then you get when you work on a project in the second, third, and fourth year, you really immerse yourself deeper, into some of these things, and you learn things that are richer as well, and you get much better at what you do as well. So that's something that you can rest assured. But of course, it requires a lot of hard work. And when you learn something new for the first time, it's always there's always a time when your muscles start stretching and you feel pain, but after a while, you get much stronger and you work faster.
Thanks, Hans. So maybe just a follow-up question to that, where we have a question asking, a student asking, if that they decide along the way after fundamentals, right, that perhaps they like a certain domain that of projects that we offer, are the students allowed to stick to that domain, or must they choose another domain? Maybe Dawn, you have a quick answer to this?
I think you could try to stick to it. By saying that, I mean that, because the projects are distributed by a bidding system, right? So that you can have a say, as much as possible, some level of strategic control over where you're going to go towards. So you can try to choose wisely, right, to get your intended pathway. But let's just say that the variety is so large that, even if you don't get specifically the one that you want, there are adjacent topics that are close enough that will enrich your development of that specialization as well. So I wouldn't worry too much when we say that, you can really customize your journey here and that there's these 12 different types of things. We really mean it, right?
Okay, thanks Dawn for that. So maybe let's move on to answer some questions again. So I guess this question is targeted more for Macus and George to answer. And the question from the student is, how am I able to prepare myself to get into big firms like Grab, Meta, and Google in the future? Could you maybe share a bit about that process, and if you have any advice for these students who may be already thinking about ahead, right, about their career path and all that?
George, you want to go first while I reflect on this question?
Based on your track record, you can go first.
No, I'll go first. No, I'll go first. You know why? Because there is a student here, Karen, who has asked a question right from the start of the session. I haven't answered her, and it's related to this question, right? So I'm just trying to answer that part, and you can carry on, yeah? So she asked the question, how long has DID been around? That's the first part, 23 years, I think. Dr. Ng can correct me if I'm wrong. Then what would you say the skills taught here are, and what would you say the skills taught here are what employers want? Now, I think this is the question related to what Desiree just asked. Now, I would say, from an employer standpoint, right, in this case, DID graduates are really excellent and versatile candidates, because I'm not saying this to try to get you in the course, because we've proof in my own agency, out of 30 people, I think more than 2/3 are from DID, right? And they are really, really great hires, because they show a good sense of understanding of human beings, which means they can tackle all kinds of projects. And then they exhibit two things. One is a certain rigor, that means they can go deep. Maybe it's the NUS type of education, they can go deep with things, they can study things really well. But at the same time, they are very exploratory and able to question. And I think that's in part due to the way our tutors here in DID have built that kind of questioning culture. So they make very good members of innovation teams. Okay.
Yeah. So the question was, what are they looking out for, right? So I think before I kind of answer the question, I think my encouragement is, it's okay, fine, easy for me to say if I'm at Facebook Meta, but I'll just encourage students to it is a nice end goal. I'm not, it was one of my goals to get into one of these things, but I'll just say I'll encourage students to also take a step back also and look at it as one of the opportunities, but not like the end state that you're trying to drive towards. I think, the learning that I had at grad was really, really crucial into a lot of things. If you ask me to pick between starting off, if I hindsight 2020, to pick between 2 years at grad or 2 years at Meta starting out, I would have said the 2 years at grad was really fundamental to my growth. So that's just a small kind of thing to get to the point to answer your question about what are they looking out for. So fine, I mean, definitely these companies, honestly, they have the ability to pick from the talent pool, right? These are things that everyone is trying for. They're able to kind of pick from whoever they want in a way. I think they are looking out for to see if you have experience doing these things, executing these things. You have high level of craft, high level of visual, but that's just baseline, almost to get into this course, there's a baseline, right? And if you look at the interview process at Meta, for example, we'll have a 30-minute session where we ask you to analyze an app. So really just talk about the app you're using. It could be Spotify, and they're looking to see how you're able to articulate things, how you're able to kind of pick at design details, how you're able to kind of bring suggestions, right? So your product thinking level. The other interview we have is a whiteboarding session. It's a 45-minute session where they will have very generic question like redesign the ATM experience. Or for my instance, what they asked me in the interview was design, design an experience to book bus tickets. So we have 30 minutes and they just want to see your thinking, right? They want to see how you're able to frame this problem, how you're able to really drill down to specific kind of details, how you're able to kind of frame the scope. And so obviously, like I mentioned, they look at your portfolio to see that you have experience doing it, but they look into, as we've been discussing the past 1 hour or so, the design thinking, your approach, your ability to articulate your thought process, the rationale behind these things. And that I feel really sets yourself apart from, baseline just having nice visual screens. Yeah, so that's at least from my experience and from my point of view.
Yeah, I need to build a bit on what Marcus said. If you come out of a good program like DID, there are certain things that should be table stakes, right? So like just sensibility to good maybe like visuals and so on, the ability to communicate, tell a story, consideration for scale, for systems, for businesses. There will be things that are table stakes, and then the rest of the process, there are just so many variables, right? Every company should be looking for a different thing, right? So if you're applying to grad, again, like what Marcus has said, the company, the culture, everything is different from a company like Alipay or like Meta or Google. So I think the important thing is to use the opportunities that are given to you to go and find out if where do you really want to be, right? Because you can spend many years pining to work at a certain place, get there and realize that's maybe what's inside is not what it looks like on the outside. That's also like a very important learning experience that a lot of the graduates here can tell you about, I think. So things like internships are very important, but beyond that, again, if I would just answer the question, I think a lot of it's also like, if you want to work at this specific place, go and talk to people who are working there. Go and find out what it's like to work there, what is it that they're looking for, what are the opportunities that are available to you in there. And that will help you a lot to, first of all, figure out if that's really where you want to be. And then secondly, help you craft the story that you want to tell, to the recruiter, if you get past that, to the interviewer and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like, to George's point, I used to like to stalk people on LinkedIn, like to look at designers at Google, at Facebook, whatever, right? See what kind of portfolios they had, what kind of standard, what kind of level did I need to be at. Don't look at mine. Mine isn't up and my quality is not that good, but that's something that I did. And I quite enjoyed just seeing the different kind of, the different kind of approaches and stories that they were telling.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Marcus and George for those. I hope that was helpful to students who asked. So now we're almost closing to 4 p.m. and actually we do still have quite a number of questions from the students. But if the students are okay with that, we will kind of address that as an extended kind of Q&A session after 4 p.m. But for now, I will just share a couple more last few videos. And then for those who kind of want to leave after that, you may please feel free to do so at 4. But okay, so for the next video, kind of is under this domain, again, similarly to the controls earlier about Internet of Things and tangible technology. So I believe this was in a studio by Dr. Yen. So please, yeah, enjoy.
Have you ever walked into a store to see one accessory after another that you'd love to try on? Yet when you finally decide to try on that necklace or earring, you realize that you can't. Standing before you is a sign, forbidding anyone from physically trying items on. Nevertheless, you still hold that set of earrings against your ear and look at yourself in the mirror. Your hand and the tags don't give you a clear view of how they look, and sadly, you can't decide if it suits you or not. Let's consider a solution that will help you try on your favorite earrings while still being respectful of the hygienic concerns of others. After several iterations of models that switch the position between virtual and physical, we introduce to you the virtual fitting. Simply just snap, clip, and fit. Let's review the steps in detail. Upon deciding on your beloved pair of earrings, place them onto the photo booth. While focusing on the earrings and lowering your phone's brightness, you snap a photo of one of the earrings. Next, you clip the tool onto your phone. Then you will see the fitting magic on your ear. Remember to increase the brightness of your phone for a better virtual fitting experience. Isn't this simple? The clip of virtual fitting is designed universally to allow it to attach onto any mobile device. The beam splitting screen of the virtual fitting is designed with 3 sizes, catering for different needs. Let's hear some feedback from people who have experienced virtual fitting.
I think like this solution is actually quite innovative in a way that I can test on like different earrings when I can't do that normally in store.
It's nice, it's hygienic, like you can try on different earrings, then there's like instant, feedback, and there's minimal like surface contact with the accessories themselves.
Virtual fitting doesn't just stop at the physical store. It can extend to online shopping. When a consumer sees an item they like online, they can select the virtual fitting button. The user will then receive a virtual fittable image to their phone. Virtual fitting. See how your desired items look on you, anytime and anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Ian, do you have any kind of things to share about that particular project or platform?
I think that just now some of the student asked about if the artist student, they can do this type of technical type of project. I think quite often, right, in our education, we try to simplify and then we try to see how can we teach the fundamentals to the student. So for example, basically, if you want to see this project, if you want to see, try to turn it as a much more sophisticated type of tool, that could be an AR type of idea. It's an augmented reality. But basically, we did not try to teach augmented reality in this way. We try to teach them how to they use the most fundamental way to see the reflection, and then that will create that sort of augmented power, allow the things to be happen. So in that case, right, the students are able to understand the fundamental, and then they know how to apply this technology into other things, rather than we go into a very, very sophisticated technology. In the end, the student may just lose out there. So for the whole process, right, for a student, quite often, like just now we mentioned, is how to really identify the way of how to use a smart thinking and then to apply it smartly for the application. Allow people have a much more better quality of life in their daily life. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Dr. Ian. So let me just show you one last video. Okay, so this one falls a bit more on the technical side of things, where it's invention of mechanisms and structures and materials and things like that. And so, sorry, give me a second to get the video out. Oh, sorry, I think I don't have that video on hand at the moment. So I'm trying
It
to
might be
look,
okay to ask them to watch it on their own, right?
Okay.
Yeah, if you go through the PDF,
Sure.
you will see. I mean, there's so much variety to cover over here, in DID, and you've got a sense of the stretch from something that's more analog, more material, to something that's more high tech. Essentially, maybe if you have one take home, at DID we try to make magic happen with resources, whether it is tangible or intangible resources, and we try to use that to serve human beings well, right? And it can occur in small instances, right? Small conveniences, or it can occur also in large systems. That's essentially what goes on at DID, and that's why our students' works cover that breadth of variety. Okay. Yeah, and maybe Desiree, I think good to hear some last words, I guess, from students, from Prashant and maybe from Macus and George, right? And then we can just do the questions if you have some last thoughts to share.
Yeah. Any last words of advice for these students who are currently looking at what they want to study in university?
Can I let Marcus go first?
What caught me off guard, I was typing a secret message to George. What advice to students looking at? So it's hard to give advice. I think I can just share from my own experience what I was thinking maybe back then when I was in your position, looking out to join a course. I think like maybe I shared I was a little bit more creative inclined, and I think what enticed me to DID, to be honest, like it's not like I had all the answers. I knew this was the course and this was the thing to do, and I was going to get where I wanted to go. I had a very, very big idea, but I was attracted by the spectrum and the diversity of things that you could try out, that you could experiment. And I think I knew that it provided me ample time, the 4 years, to really discover and really find what I wanted to hone my skills on. I was considering architecture also, not a diss to architecture, but I knew that if I was there, like I would get really like locked in as a architecture student. And so I know this has been, I'm just echoing whatever has been shared over the past 1.5 hours, but for me, it's not advice, it's just more sharing about that's how I kind of lean into this course. Yeah.
Yeah, George, any last words of advice or closing words?
Yeah, actually, let's hear from the students and then we'll come back to me. How's that?
Okay. So let me just quickly put up my screen. So for those who do need to leave to, maybe there's another session in the open day that you want to check out, please go ahead while we kind of maybe do just a quick fire round of answering some more of the lingering questions that some students may have. But yeah, if you check out the chat right now, many links have been posted there for your reference and information to go and find out more things about us, and also join us on our Telegram group where you can directly speak to some current students, alumni, as well as tutors who are in that chat. So yes, please join us on Telegram and check out all the other materials that we have available for you online. So yeah, for those who need to go, please go. Thank you very much for joining us today. And if not, then let us go back to some of the questions that we have from earlier.
Des, we are having Prashant share, right? You was going to jump in, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Were you gonna share something?
I didn't really know what to add for last words, but I think as long as you have a passion to actually like learn and have the drive to like actually be creative and stuff, I think it should be a interesting course to actually enter. I personally joined industrial design because I didn't want to like do like the standard like exam kind of like a routine. I had like, enough of that in JC. And I kind of really liked the projects that was being displayed at the open day that I went to. I thought it was very purposeful and meaningful. And that is, I think, a big reason why I actually joined industrial design. Yeah.
What's your regret coming here?
No regrets. Definitely no regrets. Yeah.
The question was, what was your regret?
Oh, I
Yeah,
don't have any,
fine.
but I don't have any regrets. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Maybe it should be a longer course. Kidding.
Yeah, I think I can go next with the last words actually. So I only have two things to say, which is two stories. I hope they're not too long. One is that I actually applied and got into another university before I got into NUS for design. I shall not name what it is, but I went and talked to the students for a very long time. Talked to a lot of students in both schools, NUS and other school, and that really helped me make a decision. And I think this you learn that you can gain the same kind of knowledge doing the same, whatever school it is that you're considering or choosing between, and so on. That's one. And then the second thing is you might change what you want to do down the path, and that's fine, right? So like a lot of us, maybe we might join a course thinking that we want to do furniture and that's what we want to do. and then that changed, right? So don't just don't have this mentality that you're gonna do one thing and that's the only thing you're gonna do. That could happen, but it could also not happen. So just be open to experiences and new things to learn. Yeah.
Thanks for that, George. Okay, so perhaps now let's move on to some of the questions that we haven't yet answered from the questions. So the first one I have, maybe Pras, you could help to answer. And that one is, the question is that, okay, I don't really have any experience in design other than secondary school D&T because I went to JC. So will I be at a disadvantage compared to other students and competitors? So how do I know if I will be suitable for this course?
Yeah, so I could relate to that, I guess, because like I was from JC. I didn't do DNT also. I took bio, chem, maths, econs. Yeah, because I remember I wanted to do medicine last time. And when I first joined, I think initially it was a bit daunting. That's for sure, because I think I saw some of the direct year poly kids who already could like 3D print stuff, 3D model stuff, but I didn't know how to even start to use the program. But like I said, I think that if you do have like the drive to learn, which I did, so like over the holidays, I would like try and pick up the 3D modeling softwares even before they were taught. Then at least the learning gap kind of like slowly started to reduce and reduce and reduce. And by the time year two started, I think those are hard skills we were already there. Because I think for year one, it was more of like practicing those design fundamentals and design thinking processes, like being able to distill that design topic, the design statement into small breakable kind of chunks so that we can actually frame the question better. So with the hard skills that you learn by the side, which you can do in your own free time, that's for sure. I think that you will still be able to actually do well in the course, I believe. And I think even have fun in it. Yeah, because I think coming to school has been like a super fun kind of thing for me. Like no bullshit kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Pras. Okay, so we have two questions. Maybe Patrick could help to answer them. So one question is that would the projects in DID be more school-based, or will there be opportunities to work with live clients?
I think in our platform system, we do have a lot of collaboration projects with the industry. So it depends on what the platform that you take. Definitely there's quite a lot of opportunities. And also we do have a lot of practicing designer that are part of our faculty. So they do bring in their certain expert point of view that I would say are quite similar to, say, working with an industry expert, but at a different spectrum, right? So, and also I think as a final year thesis students, a lot of time you need to do your benchmarking. You need also to have the correct domain expert to provide the feedback of the progression of your progress of your projects, and to validate that they are kind of valuable and true. So along the way, you will be working with kind of real life experts and also industry experts as you move along to different projects.
Thanks, Patrick. As another question from the same student is that, will we be exposed or be taught on how to determine the feasibility of ideas in terms of cost, materials usage, or execution?
To me again, or?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Please. Oh yeah, that's a kind of a demand, right?
Targeting Patrick.
Yeah. So every day I'll ask a student about the feasibility, viability, desirability. This is actually the three pillar, right? So they'll have one, then I'll ask for another, then they'll be good in another, then what about this? So we kind of always have one somewhere, you're never perfect, and we'll always question you and challenge you to answer those questions, because they're very important, because without all these three, then the product will probably not have any legs in terms of being usable or truly can be implemented or have any legs as a kind of a business viability in that sense, right? Yeah. Don maybe can also add chip in.
No, I mean, anything that you want delivered as a benefit for human beings must usually first benefit businesses, because that's the channel of implementation through which it can come into being, right? So most of the time it's like that. And therefore, Patrick has mentioned that the analysis of something like this to fit the implementation channels has to be there. Okay? I mean, which means it needs to be feasible, it needs to be viable for the business and stuff.
Thank you. Okay, next question is about the admissions interview. So maybe Dr. Yan or Dawn, you could take this, where there are actually quite a couple of questions coming in about the what is the process like of the interview, as well as yeah, what would the students need to prepare for that?
Hans is the expert.
All right, Hans.
I think covered that just now already, so I don't want to repeat myself. At the same time, the instructions will be given once you're shortlisted. We will send a very detailed email out to you, and you'll be guided through the requirements. Yeah, it's things that you don't need to do anything extra. It's about things that you already have and putting them together and showing us. That's kind of in a nutshell what it is. So I don't want to explain too much. Also, it's a little bit of it's better for it to be kept as a small mystery, yeah, so that you get a surprise.
Okay, then I think there are a number of questions which probably can be answered quite quick fire. So yeah, maybe tutors, you can just prepare like a short quick fire answer, okay? So first question, how long do we get to browse around before we decide which domain we want to do?
How long you can browse until the very last day? No, the course offers you the option repeatedly, right? Every semester, once you're in the platform stage, and I think you may have a very you may have some need to decide on what you really want to do when you come to your year 4 final project, especially if you do want to pick a specialization. But in honesty, because we train the students to explore and find the best answer. So sometimes to the very last moment, they found that answer to be deviating from what they originally thought it was, and it might entirely shift the solution. So your domain of expression of that challenge might also change to the last moment. Now, if you're talking about customizing your journey, then it's actually progressive throughout the 4 years. Okay, quick fire answer. Yeah.
Okay, next question. Do we have to purchase any software on our own as students? And if yes, what are the typical software that we use and have to purchase?
Dr. Yin or Hans, do you know the situation with licenses provided and stuff? I think for some things the licenses are provided, yeah.
I could answer for this part actually. So the Adobe licenses are provided by the school, as well as for the 3D modeling softwares like Rhino and Keyshot. Those are the standard ones that you use. So I think in terms of software, I didn't have to pay for anything. Yeah. Or even like for hosting, like for creating portfolio sites, I think NUS also provides some promo codes for certain website building things also. Yeah.
Thanks, Pras. Okay, next question. For the projects under each of the domains, and also as well as the final year thesis projects, will there be briefs that are available to bid for, or is it based entirely on our own explorations of what we want to tackle?
Oh yes, all the briefs are given out before your semester begins, and it always changes, right? That's why we can say, it almost covers all of these 12, because it depends on what the industry and the teachers bring to the mix at that semester. This is one of the secret tricks invented by Dr. Yen to keep the course always up to date, right? It evolves to the most relevant things every semester. Now, with regards to your thesis, yes, you actually define that yourself. Okay, and it's one of the biggest challenge where you grow from, having briefs defined for you. Now you have to craft your own brief for your final project. That's one of the biggest learnings.
Okay, next question, also a little bit about the finances, is that with the course involving quite a lot of production and prototyping, is there any sort of allowance or funds for the students to use as provided by the school when it comes to sourcing for these materials and prototyping?
Nadira and Prashant would be best answer for this.
I think it depends from project to project whether there are any funds allowed. I think most of the projects that I did, I had to like self-source. So I think, but that itself provides like an own design challenge in its way, right? Like how do you use materials effectively? But for certain projects where materials are a bit more expensive, like for silicone, I think that's when the prof actually, like Clement stepped in to like say, okay, I can fund, give me this, I can use this budget for like sourcing magnets and silicones, and that kind of like ease the cost a bit more. So I think it will really depend from like project to project, and yeah.
To add, in general, NUS offers a variety of financial aid schemes that are designed to meet a portion of the educational and living expenses for our financial needy students, such as like loans, bursaries, or work study opportunities. So some of this information is actually available in our Office of Admissions website, whereby prospects can actually read on them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have just one last question. Where are there any lectures related to design in this course, or is it just really mainly projects?
Can I arrow Hans?
Yeah, certainly there are as much as we know that for most design courses, the project is the main deal, is the main part of the curriculum. And you will spend a lot of time working on 2 projects every semester, starting from year 2 onwards. But at the same time, there are lectures as well. If you're familiar with the NUS curriculum, yeah, we have modules that are specific to your own program, in this case, industrial design. At the same time, we also have some modules that are specific to CDE, which is the College of Design and Engineering. So these are modules that are cross-disciplinary modules within the college. Yeah, meaning you take modules that you learn a bit from engineering, you learn a bit from architecture, and the other different faculties are within CDE. Yeah, at the same time, there are also general elective modules. So general elective modules are elective modules that is university-wide. So you get to do modules, and sometimes you can choose, sometimes some of the modules are compulsory. So these modules can be from different faculties within the university, from sociology, psychology, to physics, to English, to statistics. So you do in terms of NUS curriculum, a very holistic curriculum that builds your knowledge outside of design as well. And which is really important. At the same time, you might be aware that since last year, NUS expanded on this number of unrestricted elective module credits, meaning these are electives that you can take from any faculty within NUS. It could be from your home faculty, which could be industrial design in this case, but it could be from any faculty, to expand your knowledge base. And you can use this unrestricted electives to also do a second minor. You can also do a second major in another faculty as well. And likewise, students from other faculties could also choose to do a second major or minor in industrial design if we offer it. Right. So the curriculum structure in this renewed system, starting from last year, is very flexible, and you get to dictate your learning journey.
Thanks, Hans. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we have from the students. And sorry we overran a little bit, but thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, if you still have any more questions, please join our Telegram group chat to ask us more there, or you can also send any very admission specific questions to askid@nus.edu.sg. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us here today. And you can also check us out in person for our open house coming up next Saturday on the 5th of March.
Great,
Okay.
thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Roshan, Marcus, and George, thanks for joining us. Yeah,
Great, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Have a good evening. All the best,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.